Hello and welcome back to Galgorm Hall for episode 3 of the Signal Box scratch build. This time we're looking at applying the brick Plasticard to the structure, so let's get started. This is quite a labour intensive part of the project. It requires an awful lot of measurements, checking and that before you start making your cuts. And I'm going to try and demonstrate as much as I can in this, but I want to just sort of lay it out there from the start. Just measure very carefully whenever you're going about this, because you can start going through an awful lot of Plasticard if you don't measure it correctly. And if anything, it's nearly better to over measure slightly and then sort of cut in to make those modifications, and hopefully you'll get there. So I have measured the front of the box and it comes in at 84 millimeters, and what I've actually then done is cut approximately 85 and a half millimeters in width this piece of Plasticard. And the reason for doing that is that whenever you're making your cuts along the outer edges, we want to miter them so that the joints at those corners become a lot more flush than they would otherwise. So what we do first whenever we're making that cut, and I've demonstrated here, is that we're running the blade down sort of a 45-degree angle, and I'm just doing multiple passes, taking my time and doing this until the Plasticard comes through, and that will get you one edge, and then you repeat the same for the other edge. And we're more or less now left with the piece of Plasticard at the right width for the build. And hopefully if I line it up here, hopefully you can just about see on that left hand side there's a little bit of the Plasticard protruding out, and that means then whenever we put the sheet of Plasticard in here, they'll marry up nicely in the corner. Now with regards to the front one, as I say, I've already done it, and there is an initial aspect to the front which is cutting out the windows. And again, it's a matter of using little bulldog clips, attaching them to the Plasticard and turning it over, and then you can run round the inside of the windows with a pencil to mark it out. Now it won't be perfect, but it's better that it's smaller than the actual aperture, because whenever we glue this in place we can file and trim down the edges to make them a lot more neat and tidy looking. So let me go through a little bit of the reverse of it in the hope that I can demonstrate it to a certain degree. And I've chosen the reverse because there's quite a lot of measurements are required to get this in around the lean-to. So I have already sort of positioned this in such a way that I can make a mark here and here, so that I'm leaving, basically what I want to do is draw a line around this Plasticard that we cut a section out, and then we're left that we can slip it down in between the little slots that we've left there and put it into position. Okay, so that is the width worked out. Now the height of it is 45 millimeters, so I run that up there. But before I do that, the other thing I want to check is the alignment of the brick on the Plasticard with the one at the front. And what I'm trying to do there is to make sure that the brick courses run along equally with each other. We don't want sort of to reach a point in the box that the brick is off. Let me bring this up a little bit closer if I can. So that's the brick aligned correctly, I think, more or less. But what we want to make sure is that that brick's running right across, all the way across there. And if it's not, we trim off a course or half a course at the bottom to make sure that it then does fit, which is what I am going to do with this one here to ensure that we have it matching. Now with that cut, we'll take our measurement, our 45 millimeter measurement, and you'll often find with these here that the measurements sort of tie in perfectly with a mortar line in the brick, which makes the cutting of them so much easier. And we'll run a line across that. So now we can cut this out here, and that will slide down onto our box. Okay, so it's in, but it's not absolutely perfect at present, and that is down to, hopefully we can see it on the right hand side. The right hand side is absolutely spot on in terms of the overlap of the mitered section, but on the left it's far too wide, so we need to trim that down. And this is where I'm talking about, we need to just sort of keep trimming and shaving and trimming and shaving. And if I just show too much of this on camera, well, the video is going to run on forever. So just be aware of these sort of things, that you just need to check, measure, cut, check, measure, cut, and just repeat the process until you get it to the right stage. Right, finally got there. Now that has taken me approximately 20 minutes, half an hour, just shaving away at the whole piece, just to get it to a point where I'm satisfied. So with that done, then we can mark off the top, and we can do that on the inside here. I'll take a pencil again, mark that off there, and we can cut that to size, ready to fit. We will take some rocket card glue and we'll glue this one in place just to have it completely finished. And that's your first piece on. Now we have to repeat that process all the way around the remainder of the box. Once you get that piece on the front and at the back, you'll be able to measure the outer edge of both plastic cards, and that will be the width of plastic card that you need for both ends of the box. Once you have them done, then you can mark out your apertures for the two doors on this side and the window on the other side, and then follow the same procedures that I've done on the back here. Just measure carefully, check it, do some dry fits in that, and then put it all together. So I will carry on, finish that little bit, and then we'll come back for the next stage. Finally got it finished. It's no mean feat to try and work with plastic card, so it's not, particularly when you've got so many little recesses and windows and doors and all that sort of thing to get sorted. But look, the brick is now in place all the way around. Like I said previously, just work at it slowly. I am by no means infallible. You'll see actually there's a little bit of a white coming through. Even, you know, I fettled and fettled at this for ages and I couldn't get it any better than that. So just work with what you can, do it the best you can basically. What you can do with these little gaps is to fill it in, and you can use excuse me, you can use modelling putty to do so. But I've also found that a little bit of tile grout can work just as well. And if I just take a little bit on my finger and pop it in and just sort of work it in to the edge. Now obviously there's too much on there now, so just take a wet sponge, just as you would if you were treating tile grout on a tile surface basically. Use your sponge and rinse, or wash away the excess. And there we are. Once painted, it'll never be seen. So treat that with your edges. Now we have a couple more jobs still to do before this is ready for painting. The first and the most simplest of those is to create a little bit of a relief wall around the edge at the bottom, and it's just for added interest. And what we're going to do is take some plastic card, and I have it already marked out here, 6 courses of brick, and I'm going to run the craft knife along those bricks, but what I'm going to do is again angle the blade away at a right angle. We're now left with a long strip of brick, and that is going to be our little raised section around the bottom, and by having that little angle on it just adds a nice little bit of detail along the top edge of it rather than it being square. Now that can be applied in exactly the same way as you did the brickwork, but in this instance I would start at one side, do your mitered cut at the corner, glue it, then do your next section, and so on all the way around the building to the other side. What we really should have above the brickwork are, what would you call it, sort of vertical bricks going across it. Now this is going to be a little bit fiddly, but if you are building it, stick with it and persevere, because it does make a difference. What we're going to use are some of these brick arches that come from Wills, and again the product description will be in, or the product item will be in the description down below. These come in various sizes. This is all I have to hand, so if you're buying these for the first time, or even if you have them in your sort of spare parts box at home, you may well find that you have something that's slightly more arched than this, but unfortunately this is what I've got to work with. Now what I want to do is sort of line it up with one edge of the window and hold it there, and then with a pencil we can mark where the brick is to be cut. Now with that cut, if we add a small piece of blue tack just to the reverse of it, it will allow us to sort of temporarily stick it to the brick. Now in actual fact what you could do if you want to is just glue this directly on top of the brickwork, but I would rather have it flush with what's already there, which means we need to cut out some of the brick that we've already added. Now that's in place, and I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to try and draw around this effect so that whenever I remove it I can then trim that piece of Plasticard out. Now that should be enough. Now hopefully you can see just about the pencil line there that I have. You really need a very sharp new blade to do this, and the best thing to do is to cut on the inside of the line. Can I even see that in this light from behind the camera? Not really. And I am going to use the blade and just run multiple passes across this. Now you will find with this brick, with the knife running over the brick, it tends to want to sort of veer off in all directions, so gentle passes just until you get that notch or that sort of groove put into it, and then it'll become a lot easier. And the most difficult one is the long one. So once you think you're through the plastic, it's a matter of slipping the craft knife in underneath and try and prise it away. Bear in mind that that rocket glue is going to be quite stubborn, but if you're gentle, you're not going to damage the card underneath. But it really is a case of care. Now, I think I'm through. I heard the card cutting there. And there we go. And we're off. Now, I know I have undercut this. If I offer this up, I know it's going to be too short or too tight. But now with that initial cut done, I can start trimming the edges ever so carefully until I get the fit that I'm looking for. And I'm just going to do small amounts at a time and check it. Now that there is not too bad. Does it look slightly wonky? I think it does. Right. Do you know what? We're going to go with it anyway. It's not too bad. Now what will happen is whenever we get it painted, it will blend in an awful lot more. It does shout out a lot of it at the minute, and in actual fact I think what I need to do is to raise it up along the top. How does that look? It's not too bad. What I'll need to do is just sort of clean up in underneath the arch a wee bit. There's a little bit protruding out of the card there that we'll need to trim, but I can do that once that's glued in place. So I will glue that, trim out the arch just again with the craft knife, and hopefully what you'll end up with is something like that there. And once those are in, we can start adding a lick of paint to it. Onto the painting then, and as you can see I've already made a start, partly just so I can demonstrate a little bit of the painting process to you. You'll see I've already masked up the windows, and I also masked up the lean-to at the rear, trying to avoid as much paint on that as possible. The first coat of paint that has gone on to the brickwork is Revell's Matte 37, which I think is dark red. I'll put a wee note up there on the screen for you now. And now we are going to apply Revell's Matte 84, which is leather brown, over the top of that. Now I've done these videos before on how I go about weathering the brickwork, so you may well have seen this previously, but for those who maybe haven't come across it before, I'm just going to do a quick demonstration on one side of this box, just so you have an idea. But there's also a link in the top of the screen now which will take you to one of my previous how to paint Plasticard videos. So we will do the front, I guess. It's as good a place as any, and we're going to just apply the leather brown right over the top of what's already gone before. Not concerned about it getting into the mortar lines, as that will get a further wash of grey paint once this process is finished here, but it's more about getting it onto the bricks itself. So with that on, we want to take our kitchen tile now, and we are going to apply pressure to the Plasticard and rub some of this paint off, just in a sort of blotting motion. And you'll also see, hopefully there in particular, we have some of the original orange colour of the Plasticard coming through as well, and we want that too, because that's going to add an additional effect, sort of a multi-layer of 3 colours, tones within our brickwork, which just gives it a nice added finish. With that done now, the final piece is to add the mortar wash over it. This is literally dried for, well, I did this, what, 10 minutes ago. I've worked my way right round the building, and I'm going to go ahead now and apply the mortar wash. Incidentally, the initial coat of the Revell Red, the 37, give it 24 hours to dry properly. But with this one here, because you're dabbing an awful lot of it off, it's more or less touch dry, you know, within 10 minutes or so, so you can work on ahead. Now I've mixed up an acrylic mix of sort of black and white to give this sort of medium grey colour, and all I'm going to do now is to apply it over the entire thing. And in this case here, we really are trying to get into those mortar lines to bring them out a little bit, and then the rest of it is going to be white clear. And again, we'll just use our tissue for that. Now don't be just as rough with it this time round, because you could start bringing through some of, you know, taking off some of that paint beneath if you are just a little too rough. It is dry, but it's touch dry. It's not completely cured at present. So we'll just sort of do multiple passes over it until we're happy enough with the finished result. And bear in mind, it will look darker now, but it does dry much lighter for its finish. Okay, I'm going to finish that off, and I'll pop up a couple of pictures just at the end to show the current state of progress once the masking tape and all that is off. Once again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and in this current climate that we are all facing at the minute, please just stay safe, and I hope to speak to you very soon. Chat to you later. Bye.